Welcome back on this Friday morning edition of Hot Mic, WDAY Extra, KSFL TV in Sioux Falls, KNBN in Rapid City. Big night of football tonight in North Dakota and in Minnesota. Our WDAY games of the week tonight. On Extra, we'll have West Fargo Cheyenne against West Fargo Horace, a rivalry matchup there. Looking forward to that. In Minnesota, we'll have Barnesville and DGF, 7 o'clock start time for that on WDAY2. A lot of good football happening around the region, and there's a huge game in Grand Forks. 2 versus 3 in Division 2A. The Kindred Vikings make the trip north to take on Grand Forks Central, and that's where we welcome in friend of the show, Grand Forks Central head coach Jake Shauer, joining us to preview this big matchup. Jake, I appreciate you taking some time this morning. I know it's been a hectic week, and I'm glad you were able to come on. It was about a month ago you were on the show talking about the hot start 2-0, and you guys have not let up since then. 6-0 right now. What has this ride been like this season for you and the team?
You know, I think it's just a testament to how hard these kids have worked. This is a crew, they were freshmen when I got here. And, you know, from day one, they've slowly and surely just gotten better and better and better. You know, when they were freshmen, they didn't win many games. And now that they're seniors, they're getting a taste of what it feels like to win a few football games. And it's just, like I said, it's a testament to, you know, having a junior, senior, and sophomore class that really complement each other well, and then they play football the right way.
You said last month when you guys were 2-0, now 6-0, that the verdict was still out on if you're a good team or not. Is that verdict still out? Is tonight the measuring stick, or what do you think about this team this year?
You know, I think that's a safe assessment that, you know, it's every week kind of is a test to see how much better we've gotten. And there's no better test than Kindred. They're extremely well coached. They're deep. You know, you look at their offense, you look at their defense, you don't see a glaring weakness. There's not one kid that you're like, well, if we do this, we can go at this kid. No, they're strong across the board. And like I said, they're extremely well coached. And it's going to be a real test for our guys to see how disciplined we can play and play assignment sharp football.
What was your reaction when the announcement was made that Kindred and Central Cast, they're going to move up to Division 2A?
You know, I've coached at that single A level, and when I did, Kindred and Castleton, they were kind of top dog. You know, I was in Thompson, and we had some pretty good teams, but when you faced off against a Kindred or Castleton, you knew you had to bring it that much more. You know, the quality of athlete that they're producing is just so high, and they're well coached, and they're doing things right in the weight room. So when they were moving up to Double A football, it's like, okay, there's 2 tough opponents that are entering the EDC, and I think both of them have showed that they belong. You know, and really, sometimes it doesn't matter the size of the school. It's more about, you know, kind of like what Coach Butler said when he was on your show earlier this year, you know, where's your talent level? Who are you competing with? What do you look like? And both those teams are highly talented teams that deserve to be in Double A football and are doing a great job, and they're well coached.
I want to touch on who you guys have on your team coming up in just a second, but when you look at Kindred, obviously the eyes go to Brooks Bacco and Luke Starcevic and the big-time offers that they've gotten, and they're still fairly young in their high school career. They got another year after this one. As an opposing coach, how do you game plan that, knowing that you're going up against 2 very high-caliber athletes tonight?
Yeah, you know, when you're game planning, the first thing you do is you look at what other teams do really well. And what they do really well is they move their 2 big guys around. You know, Starcevic and Bacco on the offensive side of the ball. Coach Starcevic does a really nice job of disguising what they're doing, moving them around the field, using their strengths. So with us, it's a matter of how can we tweak our defense, or how can we use our defense to try to slow them down, you know, maybe bring some pressure from different places, run some different coverages, things like that. And then offensively, it's just a matter of, you know, when we run the ball, how do we run the ball at Luke? How do we run the ball away from Luke? When we throw the ball, how do we throw the ball at Brooks? How do we throw it away from Brooks? You know, you really have to be smart about picking and choosing your play calls a little bit more, like just being more deliberate tonight. You know, every play counts that much more because those 2 just do so much in covering ground. You know, you look at Bacco playing safety, it's like, holy smokes, that guy can cover the whole field. He's like a center fielder out there. So trying to do some different things with our offense this week, but at the same time, you have to stay true to who you are. If you panic and try to, you know, run 90 different plays this week, it's not going to work. If you panic and try to get out of your base defense, it's not going to work. You just have to trust what's gotten you to this point so far, and I feel like our coaches do a good job doing that.
I know you and the Starcevic family go way back. Is this kind of a special moment tonight when you reconnect with Luke?
Yeah, I got nothing but love and respect for that family. Everything they've done for me in Thompson was phenomenal. Coaching with Alex, coaching Jake, teaching Luke, Mac on the sidelines. Like it's football is a big family affair, right? The people you meet coaching football, it's absolutely just it's special. Being able to, and it goes farther than that. I played with Coach Bergad in college. It seems like every week you have connections to the other team, and that's what makes the fall such a special time for us coaches and players too.
What's the buzz been like around town leading up to this game? Is there a wealth of knowledge from the fan base knowing that this is a big deal tonight?
There might be, but we just really don't pay attention to that stuff. We stay pretty close and comfortable in the confines of Purpur Arena. We get our
Hmm.
practice done on the practice field. We get our film work done in the bleachers. We're a pretty blue collar team that tries to steer clear of the social media, ignore the press, and just play Central Knights football. Kind of stay true to who we are, and we're a blue collar physical football team who plays the game the right way. We're going to respect our opponent, and whether we're 0-6 or 6-0, we're going to handle our season the same way.
I want to talk about some of the guys on your team here for a couple of moments. The quarterback for you guys, Noah Lee's putting together a solid year. What have you seen from him as he goes on throughout the season running your offense?
Growth, nothing but growth, physically, mentally, every aspect of the game. He has grown. Noah has always been a great kid. He's a kid that started some games for us as a sophomore. When
Mm.
we went on a run to the state championship, we gave him a little bit of a chance to try to not have Jack Simmers at quarterback and use him somewhere else. And, Noah did an okay job, but at the end of the day, we just needed Jack to be Jack, and that worked out well for us. But with Noah, last year he was kind of thrown to the fire, and we knew we'd be an extremely young team. We didn't have many seniors, and it was a lot of growing pains for him. But I think the best thing that's happened to Noah is that we have some competition for him. Brody Ledegy is a sophomore, and he plays a little bit every Friday night, and they both do different things so well. But just to see those two complement each other, compete with each other, and coach each other has been really special for our football team. When one of them's on the field and one of them's not, they come back and they coach each other up. And it's been something that we've been trying to get to for a while, is building depth at the quarterback position. And obviously it starts with Noah, but Brody will play some tonight too.
Hmm.
And Brody just does such a nice job throwing the deep ball, whereas Noah, he's a little bit more of a student of the game. He's going to read the defense. He's going to take what's there. And it's been a really good thing for our football team, because I mean, any coach will tell you it all starts with quarterback play.
A month ago, you brought up Naz Fisher, your running back, and just how good he was at the start of the season, and he has been dynamite over the last 4 games since we last talked. I was looking at the numbers: 742 yards and 11 touchdowns is not bad. What can you say about him? Is he one of the best kept secrets in North Dakota, or is he getting out there a little bit more?
Yeah, I think you nailed it with that one. He is the best kept secret in North Dakota, and I think kind of like I just talked about with our quarterbacks, the best thing we've done for Naz is we run 4 or 5 running backs every Friday night.
Mm-hmm.
Naz only has 75 carries on the year. So
Mm.
yeah, it's great that he's racked up those yards, but he should still relatively have some fresh legs, because he hasn't
Right.
carried the ball 120 times like some of these other premier backs. So Naz he's a great kid, and just like Noah, he's gotten better and better every year. Naz didn't start playing football till the end of 8th grade, and didn't come back out till the middle of his freshman year. So he's still
Mm.
relatively young in football terms, but athletically he does things that I have never seen high school running backs do before in my 12 years of coaching. And a lot of that is the work he's put into the weight room, but he's very natural. He respects the game, respects his opponents, and he's just a grinder, and he can really wear on a team. But just like Noah, luckily for him, Anton Paralis is there to spell him, and he'll get his 10 carries tonight. And then
Right.
there's a sophomore, Carson Cutterba, who comes in, and he's just kind of like he's a ball of lightning. He's got big play potential. And then there's 2 other big guys that I kind of call the closers. They're just going to get you 4 yards no matter what you need, and that's Logan Voorhees and Johnny Sherrick. So really nice to have a room like that, but I'd be lying if I said it didn't start with Naz Fisher.
Defensively, you guys have been really good this year. I was just looking at some of the box scores from throughout the year. There's that one outlier game against Fargo South, but besides that, you're holding opposing teams to small margins, and you guys are putting up big points on the board. What can you say about your team defensively as they head into this big matchup tonight?
They're really coachable. We have two defensive coordinators that work really well together, and they do a nice job coaching these kids up. And these kids know that we're a very routine football team. They know what to expect Monday through Thursday. It's going to be the same thing every week at the same times. And
Mhm.
and those kids have really bought into, when we're in the film room watching film, that needs to translate to what happens on the practice field, and what happens on the practice field needs to translate to Friday nights. So being able to take that progression into Friday nights, and that they're going to throw a curveball. Kindred's going to run something we've never seen tonight. So
Right.
then it's on our defensive coordinators to really adjust quickly. And from there, can our kids understand the adjustments, and can we make those adjustments quick enough where Kindred doesn't burn us? And that's every Friday night, and that's every team that, steps on the field. It's how quick do your coaches and players make adjustments to kind of out battle the other team.
Well, that leads into my last question here for you, and you and I were talking about it in the break. Just the competition in Division 2A this year. I mean, there's minimal separation between the really big schools and Division 2A. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think the parity this year more than ever has really shown, and I think Kindred really started that party by knocking off Horace, and then
Mm-hmm.
Horace continued that by going on a roll in AAA football, which a lot of people probably didn't expect. And I've said it like 4 times already today, but two very well coached football teams with athletes, and
Yeah.
that's a
Yep.
deadly combination. And whenever a new school rolls into town like Horace did, it does affect Cheyenne, and it does affect West Fargo High.
Right.
Whereas, those new builds are going up in Horace, where, it's going to spread out the talent level, just like in Minot. Minot North is affecting Minot High. So to really, when the new schools go up, the parity gets better and better and better. And, I think both us and Red River are kind of trying to build up our programs to the point where if we do get pushed to AAA football, we have to be ready.
Yep, absolutely. Jake, I appreciate you taking time this morning. Always a pleasure to have you on. Best of luck tonight in your big matchup against Kindred.
Hey, thank you. Onward Knights.
There we go. Jake Shauer joining us from Grand Forks Central, the head football coach, taking on the Kindred Vikings tonight. A battle of 2 versus 3 in Division 2A in North Dakota. We'll have highlights of that one on First Down Friday coming up tonight on WDAY News at 10. I believe in total we're getting to 13 games tonight that we'll show you on the news at 10. So that time of the year. It's a fun one and a massive game, not just in Grand Forks, but a lot of big games all across the region. We'll touch on some of those games coming up here in the morning. Again, a reminder for you, Brad Schlossman joining us at 10 o'clock to talk UND hockey. That's coming up next on Hot Mic.